Hi everyone and welcome back to another 1 kit 10 cards video where I am sharing inspiration using the August card kit by Simon Says Stamp. First of all, let's take a look on what's included. You do get a zipper bag where you can keep all the supplies nice and neat inside. This is a jar that gives you white liquid which is perfect for splattering. If you follow me, you know how much I love splatters, so it is always super convenient to have this on your craft desk and you just use your brush and go to town. Now you will also find 4 little tags. There is also a pre-scored A2 card and an envelope. This is the pattern paper 6x6 two-sided. I will make the most out of this pattern paper. Only a few scraps will remain after making my 10 cards. You know that I love focusing on the pattern paper and show you different ideas on how to use it. This is an absolute gorgeous 3D embossing folder. You will see the beautiful effect. A die set which is really useful, a thank you one that you can use throughout the year. And that's the stamp set. It gives you tiny little images of coffee and tea and even some flowers and lots of sentiments. A specialty paper, 3 colors of cardstock, and let's start with card number 1. So I'm going to choose a pattern paper and then this is going to be my background. This is a great way to use busy pattern papers. You will see lots of ideas on how to do that today. So I'm going to cut out a panel which is going to be slightly smaller than the standard card. So instead of going all the way to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, I'm going about 1/4 of an inch smaller. I'm going to use one of the sentiments from the stamp set and I need to make sure that this is going to fit on top of that after I cut out a circle. So I'm going to bring in my circle dies and it is always good to have on hand some basic nested dies of the basic shapes like squares, rectangles as well as circles, and I'm making sure that this is going to fit. So I'm temporarily placing the panel on top of my card base. I'm going to fit the sentiment inside and then stamp with black ink. Now this way I'm using a pattern paper but with a huge stamp set as a sentiment, as the focal point at the center, and it is a great design to use such busy pattern papers. You do get the window, you do get some dimension by using foam tape at the back of your panel, and this way you can pretty much use any pattern paper, busy pattern paper that you have. Now, since I do have the whole paper pattern, I do end up with lots of images that I can fuzzy cut. I'm going to use my scissors and fuzzy cut that coffee so that I can use it as a focal point or as an embellishment on top of my card. This is going to add even more dimension. You can definitely embellish it with flowers. You can just browse through the pattern paper that you have for elements that look like ephemera and that you can stick on top. So here are some close-up photos on the first cards for today, and all the cards today are going to be clean and simple as well as super fast to recreate. For the second card I'm going to use the embossing folder. I have the grey panel here which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I did use some water to spray just to mist it a little bit. After you run it through your die cutting machine you will get an amazing texture. This is a 3D embossing folder, so the result is absolutely stunning. To bring it even more to life you can definitely use an ink pad and just lightly go over the top. This is only going to touch up the mountains of the design, and I'm going with pigmenting here. This is white pigmenting. Just make sure that you don't touch it and you let it dry for a while, because pigmenting takes some time to dry. It's not like dyeing and you don't want to end up with smudges. Now, since we do have the splattering medium in the kit, I'm going to use it to create some splatters. Now, just make sure before you use it to mix it up well so that it is nice and thick, and then you can either go with a small brush and add tiny little splattering here and there. And you can definitely use a bigger brush if you want to make the splatters even bigger. It really depends on the look that you are going for. Now here as my focal point I'm using the circle that I cut out from the first card, so this is the scrap. I'm going to place it at the center of my panel and then I'm going to create a cluster. So these are elements that are fuzzy cut, again from the same pattern paper. I do have the coffee pot here, and I am also going to add some foam tape at the back just to make it look dimensional. This is again a sentiment that I fuzzy cut from the pattern paper again, and I want to get that look of an art journal where I like to add more than one words here and there. Again, for those two ones I'm going to use foam squares at the back to add dimension, and I'm just going to stick them in place. I'm going to finish it off by using my gold contour liner and add some dots. And you can see here some close-up photos on card number 2. For the next card I'm picking this pattern paper, and you can see different areas here that you can use for different cards. I'm going to separate all those elements and you will see that I will be using them on the next cards. So for this one I went with the green pattern paper as my background, and then on top I'm just placing with foam tape one of those cards. Then I did fuzzy cut a few elements like the coffee shop and a bunch of flowers, all from the same pattern paper. I'm not doing the best job when I do fuzzy cutting. You will see in the close-up photos they are not going to look perfect, but still they give a great look. Now here I'm going to switch the placement since I think that it looks better the other way around. And when I fuzzy cut all those elements, I do leave a white border all around to make my life easy. So all I have to do with this card is just stick it on top of a pre-folded card that's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and you can see here some close-up photos. Quick and simple to do. Now the next card is also another easy idea on how you can use busy pattern papers where you don't want to cover it, and you want this busy pattern to be the focal point, the actual interest of the card. So all you need to do is just cut out a panel, stick it on top of your card base, and then use a big sentiment at the center. Here I used the metallic cardstock that was included in the kit, and all I'm doing is adding some dots with my white contour liner here and there to add some interest. You can definitely do that with pearls or sequins, just add some bling or shine on a card that is otherwise very simple, but I think it is super adorable. Here are some close-up photos on this one as well. In the paper pad that you get, you will find many busy pattern papers like this one. Here's another way to use them, and it is one of my go-to designs. I have shared it many times. This gives you the opportunity to cut out a panel that by flipping one of the corners towards the front, you showcase both sides of the pattern paper, and then you end up with a little corner where you can stick embellishments on top of that. It can be a flower, it can be your sentiment. Here, for example, I'm going to use this image that I'm going to fuzzy cut all around, and I can use it in 2 different areas on my card. Now, keep in mind that although I'm using fuzzy cut images from the pattern paper, you can definitely recreate this idea with stamped images from the stamp set. Remember, the stamp set gives you lots and lots of images that you can use as focal points. You will find cups of coffee and tea, you will find pots, anything goes from there for a similar design. I did cut out a sentiment again from the stamp set, that was from the paper pad, and then at the top I'm also going to use the rest of the fuzzy cut image that I have. You can definitely stop here before sticking that and leave that white corner blank. It does add to the design, but I didn't know when to stop, so I just went ahead and I didn't want to waste that image with the pots and the cups. So here are some close-up photos on this card, and let's move on to the next one. One kitten cards always need a shaker card, so just find two pattern papers, that is one solid and another is busy, from the paper pad. I am going to use the die included in the kit and cut out the outline from the top panel. Here I'm using some double-sided tape to go all around that outline at the back, and this way I can use some acetate at the back. I'm just going to use my tool and peel it off. Now this is just another simple way to use a big die that is a sentiment. So you have seen one idea in a previous card. Here is another idea on how you can use it, again in a very simple way. So I hope that this video is actually helpful for you, and it's not only on how you can use this specific pattern paper, but you can recreate the same designs with the pattern paper that you already have at home. Just go and look for busy pattern papers and you can definitely recreate the designs. So here I did use some foam tape all around to create kind of a wheel where it is going to make sure that whatever sequence I use, it's not going to move all around and fall outside of the card. For my sequence, I'm going with these iridescent ones. I don't need too many. I just want to have the sound of it when you shake the card, because not much of it is going to show after I stick the thank you words on top. So I'm going to make sure that I align this correctly before I press it down so it remains in place, and then I'm going to stick that on top of the acetate. If you want to add something dimensional, you can definitely fuzzy cut something from the pattern paper, or again remember, you can stamp an image from the stamp set and stick it on top. So although this card is very simple, it does give you that interactive element of shaking it, which makes it more special. Again, now let's start playing with another busy pattern paper. You can see all those images in this one. I'm going to cut out a panel and I'm going to place it with foam squares at the back on top of the pre-folded pink card that was included in the kit. Then I'm trying to choose a sentiment for this card. I'm going with one big sentiment, and there are 4 of them in this stamp set. I just stamp that on a circle white cardstock and I'm going to place it at the center. So again, I'm showcasing the beautiful pattern paper, and although it is busy, I do end up with a lovely big sentiment as my focal point. Then I did cut out a couple of strips from the pattern papers, and I also include a thin strip of that specialty metallic cardstock that you get in the kit. I'm going to place it at the bottom just to add some extra interest on my card. And then I did fuzzy cut from another scrap of pattern paper some of the flowers. So I'm just going to create a little cluster at one of the corners. This makes the card more interesting, more special, so it doesn't, it has different layers and it doesn't look very simple. I am mixing up foam squares for some of them and glue for others so that I end up with a different layering cluster, and I'm going to finish it off by adding some dots at the center of the flowers. I'm using my contour liners here in white and gold, and you can see here some close-up photos on this card. Now the next card is super simple. I am starting with a white panel which I'm going to run through my die cutting machine using the embossing folder. So I get a lovely texture at the back, and then on top I'm just going to stick one of those cut out pieces from the pattern paper. Then I did fuzzy cut this coffee card and I'm placing it on top. I do have dimension with foam squares in between, so I add something interesting, and I'm going to finish it off with some gems. And the card is finished, super quick and simple, but I think it looks adorable in that clean and simple look. Now let's move on another card. For this one I'm starting with this grey pattern paper. I'm going to cut out a panel and stick it on top of my card base. You see the grey panel is slightly smaller than my card base. Then on top I'm sticking another one of those panels that I cut out from the pattern paper, and I do have foam squares behind that. And now to add some dimension, just go into your stash and find any dies that you have of tiny little flowers. I do have this die set which I designed for Spellbinders. It's from an older collection of mine, from the Tunnel collection. You will find it linked below. It is my go-to filler die set when I want to create clusters on top of cards. So you will find lots of leaves and tiny flowers in different shapes that help you create little clusters and add dimension and interest on pretty much any card. So you can see here I'm just sticking them down. To cut out all the elements, I used scrap pieces of pattern paper from the cards that I used previously. So the green here, or the yellow and everything you see is actually scrap little pieces of paper. I'm going to finish it off by adding some dots. Again, I'm using my white contour liner, and this is going to finish off the card. You can see here some close-up photos, and I absolutely love the look of it. We reached card number 10, where I only have some scrap pieces as leftovers, and I need to turn them into a card. So for that I'm going to use a square die and cut out squares from 2 solid pattern papers and from 2 busy pattern papers. I did recreate an idea from a previous card where I ran the grey cardstock through my die cutting machine with the embossing folder included in the kit. I'm also using my white pigment ink to bring that design more into life. And then all I have to do is just align those squares on top of my panel. Now this is a great way to use scraps, and you can add even more squares. You can definitely cover it up completely, and this way you showcase the beautiful designs and colors of the pattern paper, and you end up with lots of cards without throwing away your scraps. So here I'm just auditioning, deciding where everything is going to go. Then you can go ahead and peel off the backing and stick them down. The sentiment is again a phrase that I found in the pattern paper, which I'm going to stick underneath. And then I'm going to do some stamping and create some focal points for the 2 solid squares. So I went with those 2 images. You can pick any images that you like. There are plenty of them in the stamp set. I'm going to do some basic coloring without overdoing it with blending, so that it matches the look and feel of my design. I am not going to overdo blending or anything, and I'm not even going to cover the whole image with ink. So I'm going to just fuzzy cut around them. I believe there are matching dies for that, but I don't have them. I just use my scissors, and I'm going to stick those with foam squares at the back. Just stick this panel on top of a pre-folded card and you are good to go. Here are some close-up photos on all the 10 cards that I shared for today. I hope that you had fun, that you got inspired. Don't forget to leave me a comment as well as like the video. And just like always, there is a full list of all the supplies that I used down below in the description. Thank you, and I'll see you all next time.